This week, we got a surprise closer look at Diablo 2 Resurrected's monster models and animations thanks to pure Diablo. Having said that, Diablo 2 has always had great designs in general, whether the original concept art or even in-game. I know it's a bit pixelated these days, but the feel and tone is unparalleled. So it's a steep mountain to climb for Vicarious Visions to step in and do a remaster faithfully. And they've also decided for some creatures, which we'll get into, to go in an entirely different direction, even though it's a remaster, not a remake. Though, surprisingly, a certain Maiden of Anguish wasn't one of them. Thank you, and Ariel Titties. Boys, we've done it. So sit back, relax, as I examine the differences and similarities between some of the enemies you'll no doubt face in Diablo 2 Resurrected if you're happy to give Blizzard your money by the end of this episode.
Not even death can save you from me.
Fallen Shaman. Our first entry, the Vile Fallen Shaman, comes in no real changes save for some additional clothing on the torso region. The textures, of course, are entirely updated with deep, recessed scars and pitted skin, along with a deeply split nose bridge. It should be noted it's still a far cry from its later designs in Diablo 3 and Diablo 4, which I like a lot less, just personally. But in terms of keeping it to its Diablo 2 design, this one is very faithful. The Fetish. These maddening jungle midgets are actually a great example of design liberties on the part of Vicarious Visions. The Fetish of Resurrected has very little in common with its original design, which appears with a dark mane and deep recessed eyes with burning, glowing pits. Though still with a tiny humanoid body, Vicarious seem to have opted for a more demonic version in this variation compared to the more realistic, do I want to say realistic, but just the pygmy human body vibe of the classic. Goat Men. The Goat Men is a very simple concept. The head and legs of a goat with the torso of a man. And the design of Resurrected keeps to this design structure pretty well, and even adds a little bit of adornments with the jawbones and ribs of slain enemies hanging around their necks. These adornments seem to be pretty much in line with lore as well, and even though they retain the teeth of their herbivore counterparts, they are known to terrorize towns in the Diablo lore, even eating children as just whispers of the visage of Baphomet. You can see how they'd want to enhance this fear. It also should be of note, maybe I'm looking into this too closely, but they've kind of puffed up the groin and they've given them a little tail. I'm not sure if that's really visible in the original, but it's the little things, thinking that the Goatmen may wag their tail if they're happy at some point. Griswold, the Fallen Blacksmith. Now, Griswold's story and design are very much interlinked by the fact that after the events of Diablo 1, obviously the inhabitants of Tristram suffered greatly. However, one of the biggest indignities happened to Griswold. He was resurrected by Andariel to become an undead gatekeeper, if you will. And so his design really holds true. He's still a bald, mountainous man with a full, lush beard, though we don't hear his iconic yet somewhat dubious Scottish accent.
I made many of the weapons and most of the armor that King Leoric used to outfit his knights.
He still bears the same clothing of a leather tunic common of blacksmiths of the age, but with updated graphics, he looks several times more gruesome. Now in this undead state, you can see that he is a mindless zombie. Not that he wasn't in Diablo 2, the original, but this really punctuates the fact that he is just a vessel for the will of the Lord of Terror. A truly fitting homage to Tristram Smith. Mummy. The mummy design is really interesting, and while I couldn't find any promotional rendering to compare it to, but I did find a piece of promotional art that shows what the mummy's design at the time was, and the design in Resurrected is actually really close. The regal trappings of the Egyptian style NPC design is evident under the bandages hanging so loosely over the creature. Panther, woman, or Lakuni. Another point where the difference in design is actually incredibly evident is the Panther woman design, which varies slightly, with all of the trappings of the tribal warriors still appearing quite prominently, only they seem to be rather subdued in their endowments. As Tails, the lore master from our Discord, wrote the script, he actually put in brackets, their breasts are smaller. Tails, please put that on screen. But you're right, I did notice that when I first looked at them. I thought, they're more like teats. You realize that somebody had to approve this. They went to someone's office in Vicarious Visions and said, I want to see more panther than woman. He's like, what do you mean, George? And he's like, can we get some teats on this thing? Like 6 of them. Quill rat. That annoying little thing spitting quills at you and was probably the first creature that you actually encountered in Diablo 2. The quill rat looks much different from its original design, something that I noticed when first playing. It really doesn't seem to have much of a face and instead was this triangular flesh patch where a face should be. Vicarious have given it a more lizard-like appearance than rat, while still adorned with all the quills, which give it a closer resemblance to the quill fiends of Diablo 3. Sand Leaper. While I go through this list, I realize how many annoying creatures Diablo 2 featured. The Sand Leapers with the amphibious-like design, which is also largely untouched, with pitted flesh, peppered with warts, and its sunken eyes remain on top of its head. Though a tad harder to see on the redesigned model, it looks more like heat sensors on the graboids from the Tremor movies. Tails, I hope you put a reference picture up because I've never seen Tremors. Bert Gummer confirmed for Diablo 2 Resurrected. I don't know what that means. Sand Maggot. The foul sand maggot's design in Resurrected is 10 times more vile than their original look. They still have the distended body structure tapering off at the end with a double pincer mandibles, but all the extra hairs, spines, and textures look absolutely horrific, making it all the more disgusting to have to slog through an entire dungeon full of those nasty buggers. It's like watching 2 hours of those pimple popping YouTube videos. Sand Raider. Everything about the Sand Raider seems to be 100% accurate to the original design, which is funny because when I first played the game, I didn't think that they were the same because of the fact that, I guess Sand Raiders, because they're so lithe with their body structure, it's really hard to kind of make out their face. So actually seeing their face was pretty confrontational. I don't know if Vicarious's design or my mental image of them were worse because I always found them freaky in the original. They looked like they were from Baraka's race out of Mortal Kombat. Their harness body armor, the sharp exterior teeth. Have you noticed how many creatures here have those type of teeth? Anyway, the curved blades, though honestly, they look more like katanas in the original, but even the mismatched shoulder pauldrons are well represented in the new design. Everything is entirely accurate to the original and looks menacing as all hell. Endariel, aka Titty Bebe, the Maiden of Anguish. We were over on the Lore-Discord very concerned that she was not going to be done justice in Resurrected. It's not about sex. People always give these misgivings of, oh, you're fanboying. It's like some type of quote-unquote waifu thing. But I'm going to go on a quick tangent. I personally am not one of these people who wants to sexualize anything in video games just for the hell of it, you know? Like that fighting game in the 2000s where everything bounced on the girl. I'm sure there's a reference on screen. That's not my jam. The reason why I really liked the sexual tone of Endariel, other than I think she was the maiden of Succubi or queen of them back before Lilith. Anyway, whatever the psychology is with sex and horror, they mesh really well and Endariel embodied it perfectly. Like a siren that would lure sailors down to their death. You couldn't help but be in awe of her Amazon figure, yet still be horrified at her scorpion-like tendrils that would attack at you. And the fact that she was a 12-foot crazy new demon from hell. All of these things, just done right, is perfection. So I think that it was very important to fans because she is the only greater evil that is of female persuasion. Diablo 3, it doesn't count. Tangent over. But Vicarious Visions updating, especially the characters and classes, have shown that they tried to tone down some more of those sexual aspects, or what could be deemed that way, especially with characters like the Sorceress and Underboob. So, of course, fans thought that Endariel's head was on the chopping block. What we got was the Maiden of Anguish in her now uncensored 3D glory. The only things that were added to Andariel to censor much of anything were regal golden shoulder armor and a bit of cloth on her posterior. I don't know why the butt is bad, but boobies are okay. I mean, we're in a society that's supposed to celebrate the female form so much so, there's basically softcore porn on TV if you watch WAP, the song by Cardi B, which is somehow not only aimed at children, but deemed acceptable as they do their own emulated dances like her on TikTok. Yet in video games, when it's meant to be hell and it's rated thusly, they're like, no, we need to cut out the nudity. Okay, moving on to the Lord of Pain, Juriel. There's not much really to say here, except he ganked me about 30 times when I played the Barb in the Resurrected beta. If anything, his maggot body is so grotesque, it actually makes him look more intimidating than his original design. Top marks for Vicarious Visions, really doing a tremendous job on Juriel, though his death animation seems to be slightly different. Oh, what's that? You may not be seeing Juriel's death animation from Diablo 2 Resurrected? Tails couldn't kill him? Oh, that'd be a shame. Bat Demon. The Bat Demon, of course, remains unchanged, bearing uncanny resemblance to its original design with its bony spike legs and wide, leathery wings. It's a perfect recreation. The Smith. The big blue beast of the barracks is our final entry, sporting his bloody apron and giant hammer, and now with the bones of his victims hanging from the rope around his waist. Perhaps he is yet to make weapons from them. Tails also put in brackets in the script, I call back to the Smith's line, I shall make weapons from your bones. I hope that you actually show... whatever. Final thoughts. The movement from pixelated 2D sprites to full 3D models is never easy. Tails has written here that Vicarious Visions has done well. I think that it's a little clunky, like, I don't know, some of their choices, especially how the Amazon holds and moves with the spear, they changed a lot of things, and some run animations I really like, some I don't. Now, not everything is 100% to the original design, but I think it's easy to agree that the majority of creature designs are absolutely phenomenal. These are Tails' words, not mine. I'm gonna give him a 8 out of 10, and I think I'm being generous. But what I'd really like to see is Diablo and especially Bale in-game. But what are your thoughts? Let us know in the comments below. It's going to be a big discussion. I don't expect to see anything that isn't about Andariel, but I look forward to chatting. Thanks for watching, and as always, until next time, Traveler.